Today in Agronomy on KFIL AM 1060 with Pioneer Field Agronomist Allie Wise and Josh Schaffner. Here's Josh and Allie.
Good morning, Southeast Minnesota. This is episode number 16th. It's March 18th today, so the day after St. Patty's Day. Josh, I will say the one nice thing about, well, there's a lot of nice things about being associated with Pioneer, but when you work for Pioneer, you're always wearing green, so you don't have to worry about getting pinched on St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, that is very true. And it's always a fun holiday when I enjoy every year. So Allie, we're kind of getting into mid-March here, and we're thinking about planning more and more, and we're probably just maybe a nice day or two away from some guys maybe pulling the planner out and getting things unfolded and starting working on it. And today we're going to talk maybe not so much a planner prep or a planner clinic, but maybe just get into, I get a lot of questions as I make the rounds here, especially this winter around, planting date is such a big deal in Southeast Minnesota, whether it be for corn or beans, and with the challenges we've had the last few years, how do we get, planting done sooner? And high-speed planting technology it's not brand new, but there's still, maybe to some of our growers, it's not something they've had the opportunity to work with or see function. And I thought we'd talk a little bit today around high-speed technology and maybe some of the the pros and, where the value is, and kind of see if they got a fit for us.
Yeah, and I think this is a nice place to start just with the high-speed planting technology. I know some shows back in 2019, we talked a little bit about a second planter debate, but I think looking at that high-speed planting option is just a nice way to look at maybe an efficient option of either retrofitting what you have or being able to truly get the most out of whether it's the tractors or monitors or different planters you already have available on hand. So, Josh, I think as we dig into this, we do have just some interesting tidbits to share from a really nice study that was out of Iowa State University from Matt Darr and Ryan Bergman. For starters, I know this is pretty elementary for most folks, but do you mind just walking us through just kind of general differences between maybe precision planting speed tubes and then the John Deere ExactEmerge?
Yeah, they're the two most common systems that are on the market, and I've had a little bit more firsthand experience with the John Deere ExactEmerge system, but the concept is very similar. The major difference between the two is in the John Deere system, they're using more of a brush. So in that case, the seed is going to get kind of kicked into that brush and going to get delivered to the ground that way, where the speed tube, it's a similar mechanical device, but it does have individual cells. So, in some cases there can maybe be a little bit a deviation there, but again, very, very similar systems for the most part. But when you get into maybe talking about soybeans, there's maybe some differences there that we may want to consider. And Allie, when you think about high-speed planting technology, it's kind of twofold. If you really look at the purpose of it, number one is speed, and the second part is eliminating that gravity seed tube, and it's more of a singulation spacing. And I don't recall how many years ago this was, Allie. Maybe might have been 5 years ago. I'd have to ask Brian Buck, our counterpart. I can't remember what year that was, but I remember when we first got to be involved in the first demo of one of the machines. I was up in Lewiston, and I was really probably not so much intrigued by the speed, but by the singulation I was curious about. And I'll just never forget when I first saw one of these perform. I hate digging for seed. I'm colorblind. I usually can't find it. And there's a farmer looking at me, and I can't even find a seed. And I'm so embarrassed because it just doesn't stick out to me. Just a personal issue. But either way, I did find a seed. And then from that point, rather than digging my trench, I just laid my tape out and I did the math. It's like, well, this is where the seed should be. And I think I went 10 seeds in a row, and they were all basically right on the mark. And from that point, I'm just like, from a singulation standpoint, this thing is pretty impressive. And Allie, when we do look at Iowa State's data, it really, I think on the corn standpoint, it highlights that consistency of singulation extremely well.
Yeah, so a piece of their study was looking at the planter seed spacing quality under these high-speed planting type conditions. So if we look at maybe just a conventional planter type option, the amount of times that the spacing was less than ideal was much greater than the variance we saw in either the precision planting or John Deere ExactEmerge. So if we come back to the conventional for a second, when they were doing these trials, they planted at 5 miles per hour, 7.5, and 10 miles per hour. And you saw the amount of decrease in the positiveness of your planting spacing dramatically worsen with higher speeds versus as we look at whether it's the precision planting or the John Deere ExactEmerge, they stay relatively even keeled across the board even when you start to reach those 10 mile per hour type speeds. So all in all, I think corn spacing uniformity, like you said, between conventional and high-speed planting, really just comes back to how can we just maintain that high-quality placement or singulation as we're planting.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that jumps out in this study is even at 5 miles per hour, the performance of a conventional gravity-flowed seed tube system was worse than the speed tubes at 10.
Yeah.
Which is kind of mind-boggling in a way. And another thing, Allie, you and I both have UAVs that we can fly fields and do stand count analysis, which is pretty awesome technology that we have working at Pioneer. And sometimes I see a lot of non-speed tube planters do a great job of putting down a population, good spacing. But I will say when I do fly fields, I'm always amazed at the consistency when you look at the gap analysis and other things, which our drone can tell us the exact spacing average of the plants and everything else. But when you do look at it from a drone analysis, these speed tube planters, they stand out big time based on that analysis. And it's just something that's kind of cool. When we come back from break, Allie, we'll talk about high-speed planting technology and soybeans.